Welcome to the Trash Cats Trashcast. I'm Richard.
I'm Steven.
And today we're finally going to investigate our arch nemesis, Andy Sucks at Art Warhol.
Guilty of art crimes against humanity, he died alone with infected guts from a bullet wound.
Just as he should.
This piece of shit. Oh my god. We really held off on doing him. I'll tell you what though. This feels like an episode number 113, doesn't it?
You know what? You know what? I'll give it to you. It definitely feels like an odd number.
I'm on to something.
I feel like this could have been a 101 as well. I feel like that.
I don't know. I think it's a 113 at heart. Dude, dying of infected guts had to suck though.
Yeah, it definitely sounds bad. It sounds like a long and shitty time to deal with something, and then finally, like, you get it taken out, and it's just, it's bad.
Little stringy man, constantly in pain.
Just like the art world wanted.
How's your week been?
It's been a week. Ain't been bad. Ain't been good. Ain't been bad. You know.
Yeah.
The Katie jailbreaks and shit, and having to rig up fucking fake locks on the doorway with fucking...
They're real heisters, huh?
Yeah, man. She's a criminal mastermind at heart. We'll see how that ends up working out long term, but...
Every day for the last week, there's been a different cat sleeping on my porch.
Oh, God.
It's pretty wild. They're just rotating in and out.
They're just taking turns.
Yeah.
We have the three regulars that hang out at our crib. Actually, I saw online just this last weekend. This is news.
I love news.
One of the guys has been coming around for a while. We saw a notification on the neighborhood app that someone was like looking for him. It's not like he's their house cat, but they were like, hey, the stray, I haven't seen him in a while. And I was able to post and be like, oh yeah, no, he's been hanging out at our place. He's got like a little insulated bin and he gets food. He's happy.
It just fucked me up. I thought you were talking about some strange pedo man.
Yeah,
just coming around the neighborhood.
This dude that's been coming around the house. No, it's just this cat.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's a lot better.
I've been looking for this little guy who responds to Bello, and it's like we've been calling him Jack for like a year, so I don't know.
I don't think they cared about him that much then.
No, apparently.
Takes a year to put up an online post looking for your pet.
Well, I'm sure he went back and forth during the summertime and whatever, but just in the wintertime, he's been hanging out at our crib because he's got his own little thing on the porch, and he's a happy boy over here.
So another week of the same old, huh?
Yeah, all the same shit. How you been doing?
I feel terrible. I feel so sick. My guts feel infected because I've been drinking so much tomato soup in preparation for this episode.
I mean, that's fair. I think the only way to do this, I didn't do my pre-planning. I should have. Now, down some more, gotten some minestrone or something in a can. And
he was a bad man, but he had good taste in soup, I will say. Campbell's pretty good. They evolved with the times. Now we got the chunky meal soups that football players absolutely love.
Football players love this stuff.
Football players love this soup.
They can't get enough of this chunky stuff.
Yeah, so, naturally I'm drawn to it as well.
The natural athlete in you is drawn to the chunky soups. because like old quarterbacks said it was good. A retired quarterback's like, hey.
Oh, God damn it. Dude, have you... This is real. Gonna take a real turn here. Have you seen the Tom Brady pictures?
No.
Holy shit.
What's Tom Brady up to now?
Just kissing his son on the lips.
No.
A whole lot. Just giving him massages in his laps. All that brain damage, just total normal football guy stuff.
Yeah. Boy.
Pretty cool.
How old is he now? Like, he's in his like mid-40s or something?
Yeah, something like that.
He's the oldest man to play football?
He's still doing okay.
Well, I mean,
He's doing it for his son now.
God damn it.
All right, honorable mentions.
Dude, I know I don't have any. I know you got some, though.
I actually don't. I was lazy. But before we kick it off, I'll say, so as an artist myself who was recently banned from art Reddit, the R Reddit page. I know a thing or two. I've been around the block a couple times.
You're not a real artist until you've been banned from the art Reddit.
So
everybody else in there is just posers.
Absolutely. So I had this thing happen. I do digital collage-esque art. I don't obfuscate that. I don't hide what type of art mine is. I don't make every little piece. It's kind of graphic designish. I've done lots of different things, but this is what I really like now. I posted something to Reddit, and it did like really well. Like it was like up to like 300, 500 upvotes within a couple hours. And then because it was doing well, all these people were like, "You stole this. You're a piece of shit. We hate you." And it escalated to the point I got banned before I could reply. And the reply I wanted to have was that, maybe I was posting in the wrong place. I don't give a fuck. I don't like to justify myself to people.
This is for chicken soup recipes.
It was just a label of soup. But there's a art's not a binary, like this is good art, this isn't good art, this is real art, this isn't real art. And we're having a lot of these debates now due to AI art, but originally it was digital art, photography, and there's always abstract art. There's always been different forms of the same argument. And I think it should, instead of the binary, I think of it as like an art purity scale, right? And maybe a lot of people might not find my art super pure. It may be meaningful to others. But on the other end of the scale, maybe it's some crazy, hand-carved marble statue that's immaculate, right? There's different levels of purity. And to me, it's all irrelevant in service of what the individual takes from it. Now, when I look at that art purity scale or spectrum, I'm trying to figure out where Warhol's art fits in, right? It's memey, it's gaudy, shitty colors, so vain and socially obsessive. And I think no matter which way I look at it, he's just in the shit part of the spectrum. I hate this man. It's so phony and shitty. And, I just want to start off with that. There's so many different levels of honesty and purity in art. And I think of him as at the absolute lowest. And we've waited a long time to do our Fuck Andy Warhol episode.
Yeah.
We're finally here. And we've done our research.
Before people come at us for not liking Andy Warhol, which in the past couple of weeks that I've been talking about it with people that I know, I've only gotten, I start the conversation with, "What are your thoughts on Andy Warhol?" And it's like, "Oh, I like Andy Warhol." And it's like, ugh.
Ooh.
You're not going to like what I have to say.
We're not friends anymore.
We can't know each other now.
That's a pretty good response because I've been getting death threats every other day. Before we kick it off, we're going to acknowledge some of our sources. Our primary big article is from Art News, an article titled, "Who was Andy Warhol and why was his work so important?" The New Yorker also had a great one titled, "Untangling Andy Warhol." Check these out if you're bored or want information. They're actually pretty good articles, especially the New Yorker one. And then Netflix also recently had a documentary series titled Andy Warhol Diaries. And I will say, even if you're an Andy Warhol stan, it is not very good.
No, it's not a good documentary. I didn't like it.
It's just about his sexual escapades. And I will say the AI voice was pretty impressive. They did that good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I liked that bit of technology. I was like, oh, that's really, I don't know what Andy Warhol sounded like, but
they were close. I listened to a couple like comparative recordings. They were pretty good.
Nice.
I thought they were like voice notes he recorded to himself initially, so they fooled me.
There you go.
And I'm an expert. That said, I think it's time we crack the can and start slurping some of this soup. What do you say? Oh my God, that's terrible. That's terrible.
You're going to leave that in. The number of artists who are household names is vanishingly small, but near the top of this list is a first-generation American born in Pittsburgh to a blue-collar family of Slovakian...
Well, that's the first problem. He was Slovakian. And being from Pittsburgh didn't help.
Oh man, he's just fucked to begin with. Andrew Warhol, aka Andy Warhol. Warhol was a prime mover of pop art and one of the first artists to capitalize on the contemporary art market of rich fucks and pissing contests.
Andy was a visual artist, film director, and producer who was a leading figure in the visual arts movement known as pop art. His works explore the relationship between artistic expression, advertising, and celebrity culture that flourished by the 1960s and spans a variety of media, including painting, silkscreening, photography, film, and sculpture. Some of his best-known works include the silkscreen paintings Campbell's Soup Cans, the Maryland Diptych, the experimental films Empire and Chelsea Girls, and the multimedia events known as the Exploding Plastic Inevitable.
Warhol came of age just as the WASP elite that had held the country in its grip since the days of the founders was being pushed aside for a meritocracy led primarily by the offspring of formerly marginalized ethnic groups from Southern and Eastern Europe. People, in other words, like him. Consciously or not, in his work he intuited how these changes reflected the displacement of high art by the divertissements of comic books, movies, television, and advertising.
He also connected the centrifugal dynamic of this new egalitarianism to late capitalism, recognizing how both destabilized conventional hierarchies of wealth and status. He once said of Coca-Cola, quote, "A Coke is a Coke, and no amount of money can get you a better Coke than the one the bum on the corner is drinking."
In other words, he foresaw our current neoliberal order. He likewise anticipated the disposable nature of our social media-addled present. Quote, "In the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes, end quote. In the triumph of money as the final arbiter of quality.
Business is the best art, says a fucking loser. Business sucks. Business is not art. Oh, that makes me furious.
Makes the world go round, Stephen. Warhol lied constantly, almost recreationally. He lied about his age, even to his doctor. He told Who's Who that he was born in Cleveland to the Von Warhol family. He had traded in Warhola for Warhol soon after arriving in New York. He adopted a gentle, whispery voice, in which that he might drop a little grenade. If someone asked how he was, he might say, "I'm okay," and then coming closer, he would add, "But I have diarrhea."
Dude, I hate it so much.
This is art, Steven. This is performance art.
All right, this is some real shit. But people that use fake voices, whether it's like super cutesy voices, super flamboyant voices,
weird accents that don't actually belong to them.
Yeah, or even the Emily Holmes, whatever, the chick that ran that blood bank company where she made her voice deeper to sound like more business-like shit like that, when you change parts of your personality to manipulate others, it is like such a red flag.
Yeah.
It's like the worst shit ever. People that do that are just the worst. Like, you can't trust them. He's untrustworthy just by this persona he's crafted.
Yeah. Agreed.
Warhol's adopted persona as a bewigged enigma could be construed perhaps as both a reenactment of the social transformations noted above and a shrewd strategy. Quote, "I learned that you actually have more power when you shut up," end quote, is how he put it. But his cosplaying also constituted a sort of hiding in plain sight, best summed up in Warhol's most famous remark about himself. Quote, "If you want to know all about Andy Warhol, just look at the surface of my paintings and films and me. There I am. There's nothing behind it," end quote. So while his biographical details are concrete enough, Warhol remains a cipher.
A cipher of soup cans and dictators in fabulous colors.
It's fake and cheap. That's and he's clearly in on the joke, right? He knows what he's doing. He's
not a stupid man.
No, but it feels like a meme artist, like a SoundCloud meme rapper that gets popular, like a Lil Yachty. Mm-hmm. This is like the Lil Yachty of art, where like it's all kind of a shitty inside joke. You're making fun of the rest of the culture, and you gain some notoriety, and because it's serving you well, you run with it. And you use your shrewdness and your like thirst for attention to just blow the fuck up while simultaneously acknowledging how hollow and pathetic everything you do is.
I think some of the difference is even people that, you know, were on Lil Yachty when he started coming up also knew he wasn't good. I had my introduction to him was from a busboy at our work, the 18-year-old kid, and I was asking him like, what's the new shit in hip hop right now? And he was like, "Oh, do you know about Lil Yachty?" And I said, "No, is he good?" And he's like, "Nah."
You know, I will say, as much as I dislike him, he did just put out this week a psychedelic rock album.
Okay, that's like some different shit.
Yeah, like it's an actual rock album. He apparently, in his personal life, has some Warhol elements where I don't think he even is like that into rap. I think it worked for him, and he wants to like change how artists today are looked at, which there's something admirable about that. Honestly, I don't know that much about him, but it's the same vibe as Warhol. I
respect an artist that does multiple genres of shit. I think that's cool. When they
don't suck, but it always sucks because they spend their whole life going one direction, and they're like, "Oh, I also have a rock album that's shitty as fuck." Yeah.
You know, I like it. I should say I like it when they expand their horizons of what they think they can get into and fuck around with, and I think that's at least admirable in that sense. But
I agree.
Still better than making soup cans.
Yes. You know what? This whole thing of like, it's the beauty of the small things, the simplicity, and then to even take that shitty idea and then make it an additional joke and like to comment on commercialism, like, oh, it's a soup company, capitalist. It's just so infuriating. Yeah. It's like a 6-year-old.
Yeah,
I hate soup.
I mean, that's not even
soup, but it makes me want to hate soup.
Yeah, it's not even spelled out. Like Banksy did the whole thing. What was his piece? Was like, I don't know what exactly it said. It's like whoever buys this is an idiot, or like, like art critics. Art critics suck or something, or art collectors suck or some shit like that. And everything is sold for record numbers. It's like
every time.
Yeah, that's fucking. The point just goes right over their head. His father was a coal miner whose death when Warhol was 14 so traumatized him that he hid under his bed instead of attending the funeral. His mother, Julia, had an interest in drawing and painting, which she passed to her son.
I blame the father. Maybe if the father was a better miner, we wouldn't have this abortion of an artist. Jesus Christ. I bet he was afraid of coal the rest of his shitty life. Oh, my dad died from coal. I'm sad. I can't go to funerals because coal killed my dad. I better learn how to draw. Fossil fuel is bad.
Oh, God damn it.
At 8 years old, Warhol came down with chorea, a movement disorder. A movement disorder involving involuntary jerking of the face, shoulders, and hips. Forced to stay home from school, he distracted himself with magazines. His illness left him with a blotchy complexion and a lifelong insecurity about his looks that manifested as an equally enduring fascination with glamour and obsession with beauty.
Warhol grew up gay and Catholic at a time when neither was acceptable in Protestant America.
It's a bad combo.
Yeah, that sucks.
That's in Pittsburgh in what, the 1960s?
Not even, like in the 40s or something.
Oof.
He picked it was a bad hand of cards to draw. His religion played a large role in his work. However, much of it's been minimized by critics and historians. But we'll have more on that later.
Yeah, he does not get enough grief about his religious affiliation. That is for sure. Andy had 2 older brothers, both of which, like real men, quit school.
Quit school.
Dude, my hate for Andy Warhol is going to turn me into something I hate. He's making a monster of me.
Drop out of school now, kids. It's the only way to be a Sigma male.
But both of his brothers quit school. They took full-time jobs to support the family. With their father being dead from coal and all, you know.
God damn it.
Andy stayed in school for the most... But Andy stayed in school. For most of his youth, he was cared for by his family, and when the Warhols acquired a new Baby Brownie special camera for $1.25, he immediately laid hands on it and never let it go. His brothers would build him a darkroom in their basement.
He also fell in love with the movies. He said that he wanted to make his living showing films. This was an unusual life plan for a boy of his background, but Julia saved $9, 9 days' wages from her house cleaning job, to buy him a projector. He showed Mickey Mouse cartoons on a wall in the apartment.
God, now I feel a little empathy towards this. Just this little boy loves his camera and his Mickey Mouse.
He hasn't committed crimes yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like almost every villain as a child is like so easy to empathize with. Mm-hmm. And then it's all those things that make you empathize with them as a child are the exact same reasons that fueled the reasons you hate them as an adult.
Yeah.
Andy would graduate from high school with honors. Very, very smart, brainy boy. He liked to describe himself as self-educated, which has been a widely accepted claim, considering it's bullshit. And I don't know why. It's like businessmen always saying, like, I'm a self-made man.
Yeah, yeah. There's nobody that helped you build your way to the top.
Very few people ever are completely self-made. And artists do the same thing where they're self-taught. Like, there's so much pride in being self-taught. Like, any real artist would try to get as much formal and informal education as possible. Like, I took every formal opportunity to learn I could, but the reality is 90% of what you're going to learn, you do self-teach and learn on your own. Mm-hmm. But I hate when artists do that, and he's guilty as the rest of them. After high school, he went to an excellent art college, the Carnegie Institute of Technology, where a number of teachers recognized his gifts and even kept the work that he turned into them, which was a rare tribute. The minute he got out of school in 1949, he packed his belongings in a paper bag and got an overnight Greyhound bound for New York City. He was 20 years old.
Warhol came to New York to pursue a career in commercial art, landing his first professional gig drawing shoes for Glamour magazine in the late 1940s. He later created album covers for Columbia Records and became the in-house artist for the footwear manufacturer Israel Miller. During this time, he developed a technique of blotting ink renderings before they dried, leaving peculiar dotted lines, and using tracing paper to reproduce his designs. Warhol owed an unlikely debt to the Depression-era social realist and committed leftist Ben Shahn, whom he'd been aware of since art school. He emulated the older artist so faithfully that clients would say employing Warhol was like hiring Shahn on the cheap, minus the pinko baggage.
Yeah, and during this time, there's a lot of interesting stories about his personal life. Apparently, a lot of the apartments he lived in were, like, bug infested, like, you know, not that he was, not that he was making bugs, but that he was poor and he was living in rough places and he was desperate for professional work. He would show up at museums and try to get jobs at the gift shop to draw cards, or he'd show up at galleries and try to convince them to give him a shot. There was even one story where he was showing a gallery owner one of his portfolios and a bug crawled out of his clothing and he was super embarrassed. And it was also during this time he's having lots of, he did get genital warts, and I think that was a problem throughout his life. He had to have surgeries and various things, but I wanted to, shy away from, like, the Netflix things talks a lot about his relationship drama and all the social aspects of him.
Yeah.
We didn't find that as interesting.
It has nothing to do with why I hate him.
Not at all.
It's his personal life. It's fine. He can, love and fuck who he wants to. It's
absolutely. What is frustrating to me, though, is I really dislike when anyone makes their sexuality a part of their personality to that degree.
Mm-hmm.
Like where it feels like, in a way, I felt the need to say something because it felt so integral to who he was.
Yeah, at least that's the story that's being represented about him.
True.
That's the narrative that everyone seems to take is like, when you bring up Andy Warhol, it's like within the first couple minutes of dialogue that someone always brings up his sexuality.
If not the first thing.
Because there's different, like there's parts where he would say like he's asexual, and then there's evidence that showed that he had, boyfriends and like had.
And he lied about being a virgin even into his 60s.
Yeah. Shit like that. It's like, I definitely get, I know we both talked about this beforehand. We definitely get like, it's a different time. So like there's going to be behavior that's going to come with that, I'm sure. But like, it's still, I don't know. It's the fact that people drone on it so much is brutal, and it kind of sucks. And it's not the interesting part of Andy Warhol to me.
No, I'm frustrated with it though, because I do feel like something has to be said for how he used his prowess in the art world to be manipulative in relationships. I think.
Yeah, that's a thing that happened after it. Yeah,
part of his story too.
Yeah.
But 3 years after Warhol arrived in New York, his mother Julia turned up on his doorstep, which, he's got a lot of things trying to tear him down in the world. He's facing a lot of adversity. He's 20 years old. He's now moved to New York. He's there for a couple years, and now his mother is showing up at his house needing a place to stay.
Yeah.
She explained to one of his friends, quote, "I come here to take care of my Andy, and when he's okay, I go home." End quote. She stayed for almost 20 years. The household had a large, smelly collection of Siamese cats, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But at some point, there were reportedly 17 of these Siamese cats, most of them that had the name Sam. So wild.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, you can't have multiple cats with the same name. That's just, I don't know.
That's abuse.
They all... you say Sam once and they all come running, I guess, but...
Now, what's your cat rule? Like, you go to a stranger's house, you're buying some drugs at the local trap house, right?
Yeah.
And there's all of these cats.
Mm-hmm.
What number of cats is too many for you?
Ooh.
Where you feel like, oh, that's gross.
It depends on the size of the house, number one.
You ever been in a 20-cat house?
I've never been in a 20-cat house.
Different world, my brother.
Doesn't matter how big that house is, unless they have their own wing.
Dude, when they're in numbers like that, they really are like rats. Like, the first foot of the walls from the baseboard are all piss soaked.
Yeah,
no matter,
sprayed, and yeah.
It is so fucking gross. I love cats, but anything over 3 gets in a gnarly tear. Dangerous waters. Dangerous, pissy waters.
My mom, bless her heart, she just, because we were having trouble finding homes for these kittens, she decided to take in 3 of them.
You're on a fine line.
She already had 2.
Shit.
So she's got 4. They're small now, but they're eventually going to be full grown ass cats, and she's got the space. Like, they'll be fine.
You guys got space.
But it's she definitely realized at one point, like, okay, these are going to be 5 full-grown cats running around my apartment or running around my house.
And it's scary because they're manipulative little fuckers.
They are, man.
They know what they're doing. They get you to love them just so they can steal your food and money for the rest of your life.
Oh, I'm sick. Take me to the vet. It's like, oh, your cat's fine. It's like, that'll be $300. In tandem with his illustration work, Warhol was making his own art. and which he began to exhibit in 1952 with a solo show at the Hugo Gallery in New York. 4 years later, he appeared in a group show at New York's Museum of Modern Art, followed by another one-man outing at Bodley Gallery in 1957. This work was often overtly homoerotic, with depictions of beautiful young men and close-up views of male genitalia. Many of the images were based on photos that Warhol copied with an opaque projector.
Yeah, I from an artistic point of view, I understand the idea of photographing genitalia. It's interesting. Weird little landscapes, right?
Yeah. We're all just walking around all day. Everyone's got genitalia in their pants, and no one's looking at it. And then when you hang it up on the wall, it's a spectacle.
We're all beautiful from the right lens, right?
Yeah.
But it is also kind of creepy. Like, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not bad, but it's a little bit bizarre.
You gotta have a certain
quirk.
You gotta have a certain charisma about you. Number one, as a person, true. And then like on top of that, it has to either be your whole thing that you do, or it's like, oh, this was just a one-off thing for the shits and giggles. And I think either one of the, like, once, if you're in between of that, it can be a lot weirder.
Yeah.
But I feel like either one of those is like, especially today, is a lot more acceptable of like, oh, okay, they just draw dicks. It's like, all right, cool.
Well, it seemed like, and I don't know if this is true, because you touched on this too. He is often portrayed certain ways. And I don't know how accurate this representation is, but it's often portrayed that he did this almost as a vice, right? Like when he was having an argument with a partner, he might go out and charm other men into posing for these pictures, and he would have these big collections of his photography. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I can see, like, if I had an artist friend who did that, I could either see like, oh, that's really cool, like, let's look through your wild collection, or it's like, oh, this is kind of fucking weird.
Yeah.
It almost depends on the individual interactions. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah. Many
people who met him in those years and later found him strange. Quote, a little weird creep. End quote. Well, that's very funny that this article put that in. He was unabashedly homosexual, and in his early 50s, that was weird enough. He liked to do drawings of nude boys, their nipples and crotches dotted with little hearts like soft kisses. If he met a man who appealed to him, he might say that he liked to photograph penises and ask if the man would mind.
Warhol wasn't the only post-war figure to
photograph little boys' penises.
Yeah.
Jesus, fuck, dude.
Warhol wasn't the only post-war figure who supported himself through commercial art. James Rosenquist had been a billboard painter, and both Jasper Johns and Robert Rauschenberg did window dressing. But Warhol carried the ethos of commercial art into his practice. He treated his collectors as clients, took directions from his dealers, and readily accepted ideas suggested by others.
Now, if you're curious what Andy Warhol's commercial art looked like, don't be. Because it's exactly what you would imagine Andy Warhol would do on the bequest of another company. It's boring, dull, and not very good. I guess he was considered good at his job because he was a real go-getter. But the art, I mean, we're using some of this information from a New Yorker article, but that's basically what his art was like. It was like New Yorker style little doodles.
You take a picture of something, you put it in a projector, you trace it, and then you paint it.
Everything's like cute and like shy and like really soft, thin lines, bright but muted colors. I don't know. I hate that New Yorker style so much, but it is kind of like you know. Are you pretty familiar? Like all their illustrations are in that same...
Yeah. I always picture, like, the colors in the funny papers. Where it's like, it's not bright and saturated. They're, like you said, muted to a degree. It's not quite a pastel. They're just, like, muted colors. And then, like, the lines are, like you said, like I think shy was a good word.
Yeah, it's all like, ooh, you noticed me.
Yeah.
Kind of art, you know? Oh, you flipped to my page. I don't. Some of the New York illustrations are cool. I mean, over the years they've done a ton of different stuff. Some of it's like cool on its own, but that whole aesthetic and vibe is like, it's just like so weird and lame. He made no categorical distinction between the assembly line and his studio, which he would later name the factory. Now, the factory is kind of interesting. I like what he did with that because this is one of those art collective type of vibes where it's a creative space where all of his friends would come to work. It had its own hype and energy. People were excited to be there, excited to do projects. Andy was in control of a lot of them or funding a lot of different things. He was having his friends do work with him and for him. He later would have all of his assistants and his team work there. It was like the head office. That's where...
It was the first ever hype house.
Yeah, that's where everyone wanted to be. That was the creative space. And I think a lot of artists yearn for that, either that space or that community. And he definitely did something really right with the factory. There, he reprised the production process that took commercial assignments from drawing tables to printing presses and then later film.
Warhol made his initial pop art forays between 1960 and 1962 with paintings based on newspaper images including ads, comic strips, and front page headlines.
Most of these were done in black and white or en grisaille, which is a monochromatic type deal, though several sourced from the funny pages were in color. Subject-wise, they range from mundane circulars for appliance boxes to tragic tabloid covers, and together they conveyed the way mass media brought all content to the same level.
In April 1961, Warhol unveiled these paintings in the window of an upscale department store, Bonwit Teller. By then, borrowing everyday artifacts and images in art had become common, starting with Cubist collage and the ready-made conceit of Marcel Duchamp. Early modernists in America, such as Stuart Davis, Charles Demuth, and Gerald Murphy, had incorporated elements of signage and product packaging into their paintings. In two tiny post-war collages, one by Kurt Schwitters and the other by Richard Hamilton, pointed the way to pop art, with the former's inclusion of a comic strip panel and the latter's incorporation of a bodybuilder holding a Tootsie Pop.
God, I just hate that paragraph.
Yeah,
what a garbage paragraph.
Pop art's bad. It's just
Cubist, collage, pop art, modernists, department store windows. Just burn it all.
Yeah, just shut it down. Go home. Art's dead.
He also contended with contemporaries such as Rosenquist, Klaus Oldenburg, and especially Roy Lichtenstein, whose comic book paintings rivaled his own. But two specific developments would vault Warhol over the pack. The whole lot of them. He'll fly over all those losers. Just because he had a better name. An easier to pronounce
I don't know.
name.
Oldenburg's a pretty good name. Used to be a brewery in Cincinnati named Oldenburg. My dad used to work on their shit.
Let me ask you one question. I'm going to investigate that claim a little bit.
Okay.
Is it still in business?
It is not. Not
You
that
may
I'm
proceed.
Not
You
that
may proceed.
Oh, God damn it. The first of these was his Campbell's soup cans, which debuted at Los Angeles' Ferris Gallery in 1962. Numbering 32, one for each variety of soup, they were lined up on shelves supermarket style. Except for using a stamp for the part of the label, Warhol painted each by hand. The result directly linked fine art to consumerism. People really go apeshit for these cans. He literally just copied some cans, and don't give me that art school bullshit where I say, anyone could have done this, and then you say, but you didn't do it. No, you're right, I didn't do it because it's fucking stupid.
So fucking stupid.
Imagine, okay, we'll even place it in that time. So, like, think of, like, an older aunt or, like, your grandpa or something, like someone that you know, if they had, like, one day decided, you know what, I think this is a good idea, and I think a lot of people will like this. And they just, but Warhol hadn't done it yet, and they decided, I'm going to paint Campbell soup cans, big ass paintings of Campbell soup cans, and I'm going to take them to an art gallery. They would get laughed at in their face.
I wouldn't even laugh at them because it's actually kind of sad because we would have to put them in an old person's home and forget they ever existed due to the humiliation.
They would get all yellowed up due to the funk in the air.
They'd be exiled. We would just consider them dead.
Yeah.
They're dead and gone forever, thinking that their soup would be art.
Oh, I thought you were saying put the soup paintings in the
No. You misinterpreted. The family member is dead to me. Their dementia has progressed too far. They're beyond repair. We must get rid of them.
Can you imagine, though, for just a minute, like, think that, like, what if you found out one day that, like, oh, no, that was your grandpa's idea and Warhol stole it?
Ooh, that'd be a fun lawsuit that you would lose.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Sometimes you only live once. Sometimes you gotta press a suit you're gonna lose.
Yeah,
it's for the experience.
Sometimes you gotta press a suit you're gonna lose. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna steal that and use it.
All right, now let's get to the most important question: chicken noodle or tomato?
Ooh.
Which paint? If at gunpoint you had to buy one of these pieces of shit garbage paintings, you going for chicken noodle or a little tomato?
The painting or the actual soup?
One and the same. You don't get one without the other.
I'll go chicken noodle.
That's interesting.
What? Just because you fucking stuck an IV in your arm of tomato soup earlier?
Now, tomato soup is the blood of the tomato. Okay. Now, would a grilled cheese change your answer?
A grilled cheese would absolutely change my answer.
Because a grilled cheese with the chicken soup is not as interesting as it is with the tomato.
No, when you have a chicken noodle soup, you need a soda on the side.
A soda? Are you a serial killer?
No, that's a song.
Okay, and now you have to sing every word.
I'm pretty sure all the words are chicken noodle soup with a soda on the side. That's the whole song. By? I have no idea. It's an old ass song. I'm surprised you haven't heard it.
Yeah,
that's from like when we were in school still.
Not big on the whole
shitty music scene. Is that what you're gonna say?
The whole soup genre. I kind of missed out on that one.
Oh, god damn it!
Duplicating images.
I like that energy. I don't want you to stop doing that. I want you to come at it from that angle because it sounds funny and good.
Duplicating images manually proved arduous.
Nope.
Arduous.
You can change it to prove to be difficult.
Duplicate. Duplicating images manually proved difficult. It was really hard to duplicate. It was really hard to steal someone else's idea and image. So Warhol turned to an even lesser art called photo silkscreen.
You just take a picture of it and then put it in the fucking copier.
By exposing positive film enlargement.
You're actually going to leave that reading?
Of newspaper or magazine. Covered in light sensitive emulsion. He made stencils. He was a stencil boy. Oh, God. All right, we're going to take that one from the top.
Oh, god damn it.
By exposing positive film enlargements of newspaper or magazine clippings to screens covered in light-sensitive emulsion, he produced stencils fine enough to print halftone patterns. Besides boosting Warhol's output to a state beyond prejudice, the effects created an immediate sensation. Halftone is garbage. Anybody that uses halftone should just off themselves right now. They should drown drinking soup for all I care. Use halftone.
Warhol recognized that Hollywood, no less than Campbell's, cranked out merchandise in the form of celebrities. So he switched from soup to stars. After experiments involving Warren Beatty and the heartthrob Troy Donahue, he produced his best-known piece, After the Soup Cans, Gold Marilyn Monroe, in 1962. A headshot of the blonde bombshell set Madonna-like against a gilded field. Warhol also lined flat areas of color below the silkscreen layer, which became a signature trope. So did the repeating and overlapping of imagery first introduced in the Silver Elvis series, taken from a still of the singer as a cowpoke drawing his six-shooter that constituted in his second Ferris show in 1963.
That was exhausting to hear, I'm not kidding.
It was exhausting to read.
Now, isn't it interesting how, both the arts and culture has all brainwashed us all. I'm like drunk on anger. We've all been brainwashed to think Marilyn Monroe was that beautiful and that Elvis Presley wasn't a pedo. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're both terrible people.
I mean,
drug addicts.
Marilyn Monroe was definitely gorgeous, but I definitely think, well, so part of her whole sex appeal was that she showed more skin than the average woman.
And she dated the Kennedys.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And it's unfair. I will say, it's very unfair how shamed and like how the industry tried to mangle her up, but not the Kennedys.
Yeah. Well, I think people were pissed off at the Kennedys too.
I mean, they're pretty cool guys.
He got shot. One of them got shot.
I forgot about that.
No one went after them. They got away clean.
Warhol produced multiple iterations of Marilyn and other leading ladies like Elizabeth Taylor, but turned to darker themes as well. His treatments of a veiled Jackie Kennedy at JFK's burial directly referred to her husband's assassination in 1963. Death wasn't a new topic for Warhol, but it was given its most profound expression in his so-called disasters paintings. Echoing the social turmoil following the president's murder, the disasters consisted of 70 paintings grouped into subsets featuring race riots, car crashes, and most notoriously, electric chairs. These were reproduced in meandering grids. Meandering is a perfect word because they were boring as fuck. Grids across monochromatic backdrops with bright hues, orange and lavender. They were in jarring contrast to the imagery. Similar to Warhol's 129 Dye and Jet, the disasters spoke to the ubiquity of the violence in the news and our deadened reaction to it all.
Ever obsessed with Tinseltown, Warhol
Imagine being obsessed with Tinseltown.
Just something so light and fluffy after that paragraph. Ever obsessed with Tinseltown, Warhol transformed the factory into a downtown simulacrum of the studio system. He produced his own movies, cultivating a roster of superstars from the ranks of hangers-on who took advantage of the studio's open-door policy to party and revel in Warhol's shadow. The factory, which had 4 different locations between 1963 and 1987, also became a magnet for other artists, musicians, and assorted beautiful people.
Beautiful people doing cocaine, baby.
Man, what a time.
It sounds terrible, though, doesn't it?
to do drugs with Andy Warhol?
To do cocaine with narcissists? Or just doing cocaine with artists?
Artists. They're hanging out with artists? Oh, fuck.
While Warhol co-directed and commercially released full-length features like Chelsea Girls, his most notable filmic accomplishments were deconstructions of the medium focused on static subjects. You know those really boring artsy films where it's just like a drunk cameraman panning up and down a boring-ass person?
Yeah.
That's basically what he did. The most impassive of which was the Empire State Building, captured for 8 hours in the film titled Empire.
So fucking cool.
Sleep, another film nearly as long, starred Warhol's lover at the time, the poet John Georgine, as he slumbered.
I think it's just Giorno.
I can't not say Georgina when I have an opportunity, though. I saw my shot and I took it.
Fair enough.
No regrets.
Warhol also became a rock and roll impresario, promoting the Velvet Underground, who were given new instruments and rehearsal space at the factory, where they performed at all-night parties presided over by Andy. Warhol designed their first album cover, which displayed his name instead of the band's and depicted a banana that could be peeled back to reveal a pink interior, and staged multimedia spectacles, called The Exploding Plastic Inevitable, highlighted by the Velvets and featuring film projections and light shows. For the record, I'd also like to state that Velvet Underground sucks as well.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's not good. And people talk about them like they're fantastic, and you gotta listen to Velvet Underground, but it's not good.
Absolutely degenerate banana people. That's what.
Just as Warhol's movies were not merely movies, the factory was not merely a place where things were made. It was also a showcase for certain groups of people who clustered around Warhol. Billy Name was one. Gerard Malanga was another. Also important was Ondine, Robert Olivo. Wild and vicious. Best known to outsiders was Edie Sedgwick, a sweet-faced and rather hapless rich girl who in black tights and expensive sweaters often went along on Warhol's outings as his date and paid the tab. These and a few others were Warhol's superstars, as he called them. And I have to ask you, Stephen, you heard of any of these fucking people?
No, because they're losers.
Yeah.
It's also at the factory where at 45 some years of age, Andy would date one of his floor boys.
His floor boys.
There was some kid that was delivering film reels to the factory, and he wanted to work there, so Andy gave him a job dusting the floor. And he was like 19 years old, and Andy's like 45, 50s. It's like a 25-year age gap. And he starts dating this boy child for like 8 years. Pretty cool.
Yep, pretty cool shit, man. Pretty cool shit.
It's shitty because it's hard to talk about. But the thing is, it wouldn't matter who it was. If a guy dates a chick that's like 18, 19 years old, but he's 25 years older, it's actually disgusting.
Yeah.
Like, it's shitty as fuck.
Yeah. That's it, not even to mention all the power that he held.
Right.
In doing that. It's weird.
The guy's story, because he was in the Netflix doc, like he was from like the Midwest or some bullshit, and he was like a poor kid who moved to New York, and he finally gets his job at this cool art studio, and he didn't even know what his sexual interests were, and then he's dating Andy Warhol. It's like, I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
Let's don't like Andy Warhol.
I just don't like it. Concurrent with pop art's emergence during the 1960s was the rise of minimalism, whose practitioners cultivated a reductively abstract approach, devising artwork so devoid of associations that they were labeled specific objects instead. These forms were also produced serially and mounted as installations meant to engage with the space around them. As an indication of what Warhol may have thought of minimalist aesthetics, some of his works, stacks of identical copies of Brillo soap cartons, and rooms plastered with cow wallpaper or filled with floating Mylar balloons, parodied them.
To call the stacks of Brillo cartons works is exactly the shit I don't like. I will accept that the stunt is very on brand for Warhol, but it's just fucking bad. It's not art, and shame on everyone who let it slide like, oh, it's a statement on consumerism in America. No, it's boxes of fucking Brillo pads to be sold to the highest bidder. It's like, to put that in a gallery and like, this is my art. Like, even as a stunt, it's like, you know what you're doing. There's a certain point where it's, like, I don't like it when fucking Banksy does that kind of shit either, where it's like, oh, this is a stunt piece, and it's like,
it's a banana.
Yeah, there's it's a banana taped to the wall.
Nailed to the wall. Holy shit!
It's like the fact that it's, I don't know, you're perpetuating shit, and there is a nice part of like, you're taking money from rich fucks, and I get that, and I like that part, but the thing is, like, you're adapting the way the world looks at, like, what art is in the art world. Like, people hear about that shit and they're like, oh, this is what art is now.
And you're actually taking food out of the mouth of a more talented artist.
Exactly. That banana could have gone to any number of people or chimps.
Starving artist, yeah.
That could have gone to feed the chimps the zoo.
But there, it's huge with the crypto space and AI stuff right now. Like, I don't know how much you've seen, but the what is art debates and conversations on Twitch, on YouTube is huge right now because of AI porn. All these internet celebrities are having their face put in these AI porns that are going around, as well as, just AI art winning competitions and all that shit right now. So everyone's real interested in making what is art videos. And I think what I mentioned earlier, the art purity scale. Yes, you can say Brillo pads are art. Yes, you can say a banana is nailed to a wall is art. Yes, you can say AI art is art. And I think that's fine. I think it's fine to call those things art, but it doesn't mean it's good. And
right. Yeah.
It's just so subjective. If somebody makes a really, there's some awesome AI art. There's some really cool stuff. If somebody makes something really cool and I really like it, I'm going to think it's cool. It doesn't matter how it's made. I can still like it, but part of me might feel like, hey, that's really cool, but it wasn't made by someone, and maybe that means it's a little less high on the purity scale. But if it's cool enough, it's not really going to matter that much. But a thing of Brillo pads, just because it represents this consumerism idea, this whole bullshit thing, it doesn't make it pure. It doesn't make it cool. You could still call it art, but it's lame. It's just lame.
I guess in that point of view, the people I should have issue with are the people that walked by it in a gallery and contemplated it, rather than just going, that's funny, it sucks though, and then moved on.
Because the fact that Warhol had the confidence to do these things for years unabashedly is the fault of everyone that bought his art, endorsed it, made money off of it. It's the consumer's fault as much as it is his.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a very fair thing to say. The 1960s represented Warhol's most inventive period, but an event near the decade's end decisively altered his life and career. On June 3rd of 1968, Valerie Solanas, a self-styled radical feminist who held a grudge against Warhol for allegedly stealing the manuscript for a play she wrote, entered his office and shot him point blank. She was a local eccentric, the founder and sole member of a feminist organization she called SCUM, the Society for Cutting Up Men.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah. She was also apparently suffering from an acute mental disorder.
Oh my goodness, that's shocking. She was mentally ill?
She had previously been to Warhol's studio a few times, and he had put her in a sexploitation film titled I, a Man in 1967. She felt he should have used her more, and this was the reason for her visit. Entering the studio, she fired several times at Warhol and also put a bullet in a friend of his who was visiting. Then she turned around and stepped back onto the elevator. A few hours later, in Times Square, she told a bewildered cop, "The police are looking for me. I am a flower child. He had too much control over my life." 2 bullets tore through his stomach, liver, spleen, esophagus, and lungs, and at one point he was declared dead before being revived. He spent 2 months in the hospital undergoing a grueling sequence of operations that left him wearing a surgical corset for the remainder of his life.
This is a small clip of the description of the repair job Dr. Rossi did on Warhol's innards after the 1968 shooting. The surgeon found 2 holes in the arc of the diaphragm muscle, pierced both right and left as the bullet crossed through Warhol's body. An esophagus severed from the stomach, so that food and gastric acid were spilled out from below. A liver whose left lobe was mashed and bleeding, and a spleen utterly destroyed and spilling more blood than any of the other organs. The bullet also cut a ragged hole in Warhol's intestines, releasing feces and upping the chance of fatal infection.
It doesn't sound too far off from a Warhol piece of art.
Yeah, just write it on a
just shit and fluid, put it on a canvas and sell it to the highest bidder. The repercussions of Warhol's being shot were immediate. He closed the factory to outsiders and embarked on what he called, quote, business art.
Oh, God.
Under that aegis, he produced society portraits as well as print editions and launched a variety of other commercial ventures, including cable television shows and Interview magazine. He also licensed his name for products ranging from soap to Jell-O molds. He apparently drew the line at bedsheets.
This transformation in the way he managed his affairs was a logical extension of a respect for marketing that dated back to his days as a commercial artist. And it provided a template for future entrepreneurs and artists like Jeff Koons, Damien Hirst, Banksy, and Cause, who operate both within and without the art world.
Some of Warhol's work, as well as his own personality, has been described as being Keaton-esque. Warhol had been described as playing dumb to the media. He sometimes refused to explain his work. He has suggested that all one needs to know about his work is already there on the surface.
You know, I recently had a little thought.
Mm-hmm.
I've come to a strong conclusion. Wigs are unethical. Wigs are
fair.
Bad. If you wear a wig, you're a bad person.
What about people that go through chemotherapy?
I don't make exceptions. The rule's the rule, brother.
You heard it here first, everybody. That's now law. Wigs are bad for bad people.
I can't say that.
You can't.
At the same time, Warhol continued to produce significant paintings such as his multi-part shadow painting, his Mao and his Skull series, and his oxidation works, for which his assistants urinated on copper-coated canvases that consequently revealed splashes of green patina. Warhol then was hardly out of ideas, but to outsiders and often to insiders as well, it seemed that more than ever, his legend was overtaking his art.
During the 1980s, Warhol hung out with the young Warhol Mankeys? Manx, I think is what that is.
Manquays?
Manquays.
With a young manatee, Keith Haring.
I'm trying to hear this fucking pronunciation.
Manque.
Monka.
Then Warhol hung out with the young Manquea.
Let me look at. I'm just gonna find a different word.
Then Warhol hung out with the young macaw.
He's hanging out with a young macaque.
He's hanging out with all those young macaques, young mackerdoodles, the quackers. Dude, I'm delirious right now.
During the 1980s, Warhol hung out with the young Warhol wannabe Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat, doing collaborative projects with the latter. He also created a body of hand-painted compositions of borrowed ads that recalled his efforts from the early 60s, but he arguably saved the biggest surprise for last with his final cycle of paintings based on Leonardo's Last Supper, which finally laid bare the religious impulse that has always informed his art.
Raised in the Byzantine Catholic Church, Warhol was taken to Mass by his mother as a child and continued to go as an adult. He underwrote his nephew's priesthood studies and served meals to the homeless in keeping with the church's teaching on helping the poor. Warhol, as an adult, sporadically went to Mass. "Church is a fun place to go," he said. Despite the church's homophobic teachings, Andy described himself as a religious person. Many of Warhol's later works depicted religious subjects, including two series, Details of Renaissance Paintings from 1984 and The Last Supper, 1986. In addition, a body of religious-themed works was found posthumously in his estate.
More pertinently for his art, his faith was tied to the traditions of Eastern Christianity, among them the veneration of icons, which threw his efforts into a different light. Gold Marilyn, for example, is usually seen as an ironic comment on how pop culture has become a substitute for religion, but Warhol understood that worshipping a star in image form was no different from doing the same for Christ. Indeed, unlike Judaism and Islam's prohibitions against depicting God, the church transformed Jesus into a logo for the divine. Based on a 19th century engraving of Leonardo's masterpiece for the refectory of Santa Maria del Grazie Convent in Milan, Warhol's Last Supper was commissioned for an exhibit by the art dealer Alexander Aeolus. whose Milan gallery stood across the street from the Coven.
Warhol attended the exhibition's opening on January 22nd, 1987. But exactly 1 month later, he would die at New York Presbyterian Hospital following the removal of an infected gallbladder, one of the long-term complications stemming from the attempt on his life. When the surgeons pulled out his gallbladder, they found it falling apart with gangrene. He died the next morning. That's fucked up. That's pretty fucked.
It's pretty brutal.
I don't know if we said it earlier, but he wore a corset after that shooting. Like, it was lifelong complications after that.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Gangrene of the gallbladder would be...
Yeah, that sounds fucking disgusting.
Insidious.
Andy Warhol's life may be better documented than that of any other artist in the history of the world. That is because every few days or so, he would sweep all the stuff on his desk into a storage box, label it TC, short for time capsule, and then store it, all with the preceding TCs in a special place in the studio. As a result, they have his movie ticket stubs, his newspaper clippings, his cowboy boots, his wigs, his collection of dental molds, his collection of pornography, his countless Polaroids he took of the people at the countless parties he went to, you name it. He has copies of bills he sent and also of bills he received from increasingly exasperated creditors.
Yeah, I mean, that's a testament to his shrewdness. I mean, that is the foresight very few artists have, is to document their process and, livelihood, their experience, to leave a history of who they were and what they were like. I mean, it's pretty intelligent, for sure. In one box, there's supposedly a slice of cake on a plate. It wasn't just material objects he kept. When possible, he taped his phone conversations and sometimes had an assistant type them up. He believed in the power of the banal. This faith was the wellspring of his pop art paintings, the Campbell soup cans, the Brillo cartons, that made him famous in the 1960s and changed America's taste in art.
Makes it taste a little bit in your mouth like soup. After Warhol's death in 1987, a museum dedicated to his work was established in his hometown, Pittsburgh. The time capsules, 610 of them, were shipped there and lined up on banks of metal shelving, ready for the person who would work their contents into a fittingly rich biography. The final biography would end up being 900 pages long.
Holy fuck, that's way too long. That's so stupid.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked. That's a lot of pages. That's longer than all the Harry Potter books. It's somewhat chilling to consider that Warhol's Last Supper may have represented a premonition of his own death. In any case, he wound up being where he began, in Pittsburgh, buried under a headstone that he thought should be left blank, or at least inscribed with only one word: figment. In the end, Andy Warhol was a construct of Andrew Warhol's imagination that remains firmly lodged in our own.
What an empty, hollow man. He
was pretty hollow after they took his gallbladder out.
He just exudes weakness, like it's a facade, figment. I mean, in a lot of ways, I respect him for being able to create something so powerful to shape the art world and attractive to other people that he could fuel his own success. But man, I feel like he just appeared to be a very sad person.
Yeah, agreed.
So what are your final thoughts? I know you got a little conclusion on
I got a little bit of shit. So first of all, let me talk about this Netflix doc. So I'm not really sure if I like this, if I dislike Warhol any less than I did beforehand, but I definitely realized a lot of the things that I don't like about Warhol are at least partly because of the people around and close to him. The document itself focuses so deeply on his personal life and his relationships and shit like that, and I feel like it barely touches on his artwork. So there's like his processes, or even like his thoughts on his own art, aside from like occasional press statement kind of lines about its significance and what it means and shit like that. I felt like that was so lacking in what I wanted from that documentary. So many of the people interviewed also, they just seem like the thinnest veneer ass people. They all seem like they have little to no personality in their lives, even currently, outside the fact that they knew Andy Warhol. And that way I feel bad for Warhol in that regard of like being a celebrity surrounded by all these people that are just trying to impress you, just a bunch of dipshits that want to go to parties with you and like hang out in the art world and shit. And like, it's definitely was built by his, like he built that himself.
Yeah. I don't think he would want it any other way.
I think there's a lot of people that think like, oh, I want to be famous one day and like have no idea all of what that entails. Like, true, you're going to make a lot of money and you're going to die rich, and that's fantastic and great, and everyone wants that. But like being surrounded by just a bunch of like fucking assholes and dipshits all day long, that's got to be the absolute worst. Like, not just being surrounded by them, but they are all trying to talk to you and hanging out with you 24/7. They always want to like fucking be up in your shit. It's got to be annoying.
And they always wanted to get him to do drugs with them too. And he wasn't a big drug guy. Like, it sounded like he occasionally would like go all out at a party, but for the most part, he showed up at all the parties, walked in the front door and out the back. He went home early to his partners at the time. Like, he wasn't a big drug guy. I think there were...
Well, you know, maybe his art would have been better if he smoked a little bit of devil's lettuce. His art's not that impressive. Even for his time, it's just not impressive artwork. Like, this is the time where, like, Dali was coming out with shit, and like even like I'd put Picasso on a higher pedestal than I put Warhol. And I don't like Picasso either.
Yeah, fuck Picasso, but yeah, miles ahead of Warhol.
You know, fucking was Escher earlier? I think he might have been a little bit earlier.
Not possible.
But even like his work, it's like it's just far and so far beyond the concepts in I don't know, it's just way better shit. The only boon that I will hold for Andy Warhol, the only thing that he has in my heart is that he may have helped normalize the idea of like gay people, trans people, drag queens in some people's heads. The Ladies and Gentlemen series that he did. There's a lot of people that see his work, you know, in this area as exploitative, and understandably so. I think through time that even that could have been helpful to people that were aware of his work during that time and that didn't recognize their own ignorance on the subject. I definitely don't think that makes his artwork any better, but if it helped even a few people start to question how stupid and monstrous it is to victimize people for living the way that they, like who they are, then I do see that as a benefit to the world. But also fuck Andy Warhol.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that, but it didn't even seem like that was important to him.
No, I don't think that being the intention. I can definitely see
it's an effect.
How that. Yeah, I definitely see that as being like he saw it as something that people would be aghast at. You know, like just like, oh, look at these people, look at these paintings and pictures and portraits. And
at the same time, where I could see there being some of those good effects, he was spineless though. Like he failed to object to his religion, hating who he was, and he failed to non-ironically stand up for who he was to the world too. I just literally hate this man so much. Any artist that requires, this is just a general rule, any artist that requires assistance, a staff, a team, this business mindset bullshit, to make a large portion of their work, they are no longer an artist. They are a business. It's not them making art, it's they.
Yeah, agreed.
It changes. You can see it with Shepard Fairey, I'm sure Banksy to some degree. These artists, when they become big enough, they need a team. They are not the artist anymore.
Right.
Andy was a shrewd business boy who cared more about vanity and sex than his own art. I hate his vanity, I hate his flamboyancy, his arrogance, his sarcastic obsession with celebrity, and the use of his art and status to manipulate people is really gross, and it sucks because he has made his sexuality such a big part of his personality that I honestly don't feel like he gets criticized enough for a lot of the things he did. His obedience to the church that alienated him is pathetic, And there's a reason he got shot. He stole from people and he used artists that were never going to be as big as him. He was smart. He knew he was stealing the talent and ability of a lot of people that would never be able to achieve what he did. And a lot of people resented him, both for the lack of quality in his work and for how he manipulated the art market and artists around him. It's easy to say that the woman that shot him was crazy. And the reality is she kind of was. She was diagnosed with mental illness. I don't think we can hold that against her as much as we can against him, because he was the one to surround himself with these people. He surrounded himself with all these weirdos to rip off their work. Andy Warhol got what he deserved. And I think my only other final words is, fuck Andy Warhol. May he never rest in peace.
Amen.
Amen.
Thanks again for listening, everybody.
That was fun.
It was worth doing, and it was worth doing it right.
Got a little steam out of my system.
Yeah, Steve, you evolved throughout that podcast. You went from a sleepy boy to an enraged monster to
smoking meth to not sleeping. This podcast is not over for me. It's going to affect my next 3 days.
That's fair. Really, thanks again for listening, everybody.
Definitely.
We really do appreciate people that have been listening more often. We're seeing numbers and it looks good, so thank you very much.
Definitely.
Thank you to Approaching Human for the use of his music. You can find his work on SoundCloud at Approaching-Human.
We finally got an interview date in the books with Approaching Human, so that's going to be very exciting.
Gonna be good shit. Make sure to check out the show page at Trash Cats Trashcast on Instagram for news and arts from the show. Also, check out Facebook for the memes.
For the memes, if you're super bored, you can check out my trashy art on Instagram at Skyzix, SKYZACX. Shouts out to no one. Shouts out to Valerie Solanas,
for shooting Andy Warhol. For killing Andy
did
Warhol.
The world
Thank you.
A service. And next week we got some cool stuff ahead for sure. So tune in then. I think that's it for us today.
Yeah, that's going to be all for us. Stay classy, eat trashy.
Go fast, eat trash.